Mayor, Council, I think most of you know who I am. My name is Sal Lutey. I live at 2206 Loma Rica Circle, Prescott, Arizona, and I represent Deepwell Ranch. But in addition to that, I am a citizen here who has lived in this community for 50 years. And I have experienced and seen development and whatever. But I don't want to get into the details of a master plan or development agreement. I want to visit you with the history of Deepwell Ranch. Some of those things are important, and how we got to where we are today with respect to the master plan, the development agreement, and what the process was to get there, where we are today.
Sal, could you speak in a little bit more than the mic? I
Okay.
see people back there struggling.
All right. Everybody needs to understand that Harold and Mitzi James, Ron James' aunt and uncle, came here from Wyoming and settled on the Depot Ranch, acquired the Depot Ranch in the 50s. Okay. They operated the ranch. They also operated a charitable foundation called the Harold James Family Trust, which has provided much for this community over the years in terms of even hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for charitable purposes and functions in this community. But the city of Prescott came to Harold and Mitzi back in 1967 and requested an easement through the ranch for what is now the water line that comes through Deepwell Ranch. Harold and Mitzi granted that. And that is all for the benefit of this community, Deepwell Ranch, and everybody that lives around here in this community. In addition, they had a unique plan with their estate and whatever. And what that provides, that when they were both gone, they wanted everything, Deepwell Ranch and everything that they owned, to go to this foundation, so that the ranch could be continuing to operate as an operating cattle ranch now and in perpetuity. The problem with that was, and this is just a legal problem, the Harold James Family Trust was a non-operating foundation. And when Mitzi James passed away in '07 and we started to deal with those issues, it became apparent that a non-operating foundation could not operate a cattle ranch. So we went to council in Phoenix, my friends at Snow and Wilmer, and I asked them to give me an expert in foundations and what we might be able to do to accomplish the objective and the plan of Harold and Mitzi James. Believe it or not, 2 months ago, after years of discussion and working with the Internal Revenue Service, we received authorization from the Internal Revenue Service to convert the Harold James Family Trust non-operating foundation to an operating foundation, which can now operate the ranch as long as it is involved in really useful charitable activities. That person from Snow and Wilmer, that lawyer, his name is Prescott, which is probably appropriate for this area, went to work across the country trying to find similar situations where ranches were operated within the confines of a foundation for charitable purposes. He found some of those 2 years ago. A fellow from New Mexico State University that has worked on these things of ranches for years came and visited. He was here last week, as a matter of fact, again. Rob Pecharich will discuss those issues about what those things are in place now, which would permit and authorize the ranch to be operated as a charitable foundation. I want to go into one other thing, hopefully, and I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to go through the annexation process. This did not happen by accident. The city of Prescott had the vision and the foresight years ago to see that at some point in time, development was likely to occur north of Prescott, north of the Prescott city limits. They approached Mr. James and us, and over a period of years, we discussed the prospect of pre-annexation, which was mentioned by George Worthy. That negotiation was together. It really was like a partnership, working together to try to do something that was positive for this entire community. Contained within that pre-annexation agreement, and I know you're going to get to talk about water, but I want to bring up, within that pre-annexation agreement, there were two allocations of water from the city of Prescott to Deepwell Ranch. The first of which was 900 acres. That is already in place, and some of that property or that water has already been used for development. The second one was 900 acres from the Big Chino, if that ever comes through. But also, we all know, and it was mentioned here several times, particularly by Mr. Lamerson, that doesn't preclude anybody from going after any other water that the city might have over time or over the years, or from other sources. So I just wanted everybody to think about that and remind what the allocation is. So then we continued to discuss annexation, and annexation was approved. And it's been brought up that we have a general plan that's been amended and whatever, but that general plan is in place. And that also was accomplished through negotiation and discussion, and that plan was approved by a vast majority of the voters of this community. So that's kind of how we got where we are now. And that's where we really started after the annexation to talk about development and a master plan and everything, which we believed is positive and is in the best interest of the city. But it was a result of this partnership between Deepwell Ranch and the city over many years that have kind of come to that decision and that conclusion. So that's kind of how we got here over many years to where we are now. In summary, I just want to say Deepwell Ranch and the city of Prescott really forged a value-added partnership to try to put this together in a very positive form for quality growth. Everything. We're talking about economic development and everything over many, many years. And what we're interested in, and I think the city is interested in, is quality, gradual development with flexibility over a period of years, which is in the best interest of the public, the city, and everyone involved. And we kind of foresee this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the city to build an important part of Prescott from the ground up, as opposed to what might occur under existing zoning, which could result in potential add-on urban sprawl. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sal. Nick?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Rob Pecharich, resident of Prescott for 43 years. I have the pleasure of representing the foundation, the James Foundation, also known as the Harold James Family Trust, but locally everybody just calls it the James Foundation. I don't have time to tell you all of the good things the foundation does, how it spends its money, I think you know, but primarily for charitable, scientific, and educational purposes. Foundation can spend that money anywhere. It happens to be a local foundation and chooses voluntarily to help the city of Prescott with its money. As the owner of this property, there's a unique opportunity for the James Foundation to partner with the city of Prescott. Have you ever seen such a large piece of ground, 1,800 acres, in a key strategic area of any city, owned by a charitable nonprofit that's going to take its money and use it back in the city? Have you ever seen one owner with 1,800 acres instead of hundreds of owners, willing to come to the table with the city and do a master plan. This master plan has been 10 years in the works since the city first approached Mr. James and asked for cooperation for the annexation. It's well planned, it has many community benefits. It has areas for fire stations, for police stations, land donated for schools, not one, but several. That's an interesting point. If the James Foundation donates land to Prescott Unified School District for a new high school, suddenly the school district can relocate the high school and relocate Prescott Middle School to the old high school, opening up the Prescott Middle School downtown for economic development. All of a sudden, the city of Prescott has an opportunity for a downtown convention center. At the time of annexation, the city hired a financial expert to determine the economic benefits of the annexation. That report came back that the annexation would have very positive economic benefits to the city. It's important to keep in mind that the James Foundation owns a ranch, which is an operating ranch. It has 18,000 acres. This development is only for 10% of that, 1,800 acres. That means the remainder, 16,200 acres, stays as an operating ranch, operated by this operating foundation. That means that 16,200 acres still has cattle out on it, still is open. When it comes to density, you have to ask yourself, what are we comparing to? The number that the developer came in with was 10,500 units. What does the current zoning allow? You heard today that it was 14,000 units. That obviously is more than what the developer has asked for. But Councilwoman Orr, you asked about the exhibit to the council packet. I have it. We can put it on the overhead, but it shows, according to the city, the maximum density is 15,069. So, someplace, so the city needs to start comparing apples to apples. What does the current zoning allow, and what is proposed under the master plan? And if that is less under the master plan, then it's not a big number. The bigger number is what's currently zoned. So aren't we in a very unusual situation where we have an owner who's charitable, owns a big piece of property, is willing to partnership with the city, come to some understanding as to a reasonable density, and then find a way to develop that in a way that makes sense, that is logical and managed growth plan for the city. We've talked a little bit today about private property rights. Of course, those private property rights are founded in the United States Constitution, which provides that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. That means if you want open space, and the owner owns it, and it's zoned to be used for something else, you gotta pay that owner to keep it vacant. You can buy it and keep it vacant, or you can agree to a master plan whereby the owner agrees to keep it vacant. We've talked about the airport. The report from the airport department clearly stated that the master plan is better than the existing zoning for the airport. The only way that it makes economic sense for a ranch to continue on the remaining 16,200 acres is to find a way to develop 10% of that 18,000 acre ranch. The master plan does that. It's a clear cooperation with the city. It started 10 years ago. The foundation is happy and willing to continue to work with the city to make this a reality. It'll be good for the community. It'll be good for the economics. It'll be good for the city of Prescott. And we'll finally have some meaningful additions to the city instead of haphazard 20-acre lot developments that would result in a piecemeal development of this area, instead of a managed growth master plan that I think most people appreciate the benefits of. So in closing, I'd just like to suggest that the density is much less under the master plan than as proposed or as allowed under existing zoning. We need city to tell us exactly what that number is. Is it 14,000 or is it 50,000? Maybe it doesn't matter much because we're clearly under that now, but it would be helpful to know what that number is. And then from that point, I think city staff and the developer can work out some number that satisfies both parties. Thank you very much.